Welcome to GTR. My name is Mark, and this is Boardgame Throwback, the show where we take a look at the top 10 games for a specific year on Board Game Geek, and we ask ourselves, hey, would we play this today? All right, if you're with me, and you're here to have a little chat, sit back and relax, grab a cup of joe, take a little slurp, and let's get into it. Okay, today on Board Game Throwback, we're taking a look at the year 1979. 1979. So far, we've looked at 1989, and we found some pretty good gems in there. We looked at 1999, and we found some games that, hey, we still play those today, actually, and we own them, and we think they're great. So let's rewind a little farther and go back and stick with the same theme, and we'll go to 1979. So we'll knock off some of these nines, the ends of the decades, and then we'll kind of work our way around there. There's so much content. There's so much stuff to get into by looking at these old games. And I just want to give a little caveat before we go any further. Listen, sometimes we get caught up in the cult of the new and just getting obsessed with new board games and what's out there and just new designs and new publishers, new games, getting our hands on it and unboxing new stuff. Listen, I love it. I got nothing against it. And I'm not trying to quench that mentality or quench that at all. I'm just saying that sometimes it's nice to look back at older games and see what's out there. See what we're missing. See if there's any gems that we've forgotten about. I was talking with somebody on YouTube the other day on these comments. Or no, it was on Instagram. And they mentioned about they did this revisit series. And they're going back and look at these old games and see if they still want them. And then they pitch them. And I said, that's a great idea. But on the obverse to that, oftentimes we've played a game and given up on it. And then we've come back to it a year later, 2 years later, and went, oh man, this is an excellent game. And we either because we've learned or grown or expanded as board gamers, our knowledge, our understanding has grown, or we weren't in the right space, the right headspace, the right mentality when we first tried it. And so we come back to these games and we go, man, these are great. We'd given up on them, but someone came over and they wanted to play this game. We're like, nah. And then we busted it out and we thought, oh, this is great. So this is kind of a way to ground ourselves in this hobby and say, hey, there are lots of games out there, okay? And we might be missing out on some goodies. So that's what the aim of this episode, this show, Board Game Throwback, is. So without any further ado, let's hop on over here. Let's pull up the old desktop. Oh, would you looky here? I just so happened to be on Game to Remember's Instagram page. At the time of this recording, we are at 265 followers. And you know what? If you're watching this video and you're not one of those 265 followers, I'll let you in on a little secret. We'd absolutely love to have you as the next one. Come on into the Game to Remember family. We just love board games here. So head on over to Instagram, find us at Game to Remember, and give us a little post. My latest endeavor that I've been doing is I've been taking photographs of board game covers, close-ups of board game covers, and we're doing a Name That cover contest, or it's not really a contest, there's nothing to win, but it's more or less bragging rights. But I was looking at the up close, in-depth nature of some of this board game cover art, and I went, man, like, this is gorgeous. Now, this is just a zoomed in shot that I took with a telephoto lens up against a game, and this is just a tiny little scene in that board game cover, and I thought, this is gorgeous. Man, this is absolutely gorgeous. And so I got a bunch of these that I'm going to kind of put up, and if that interests you, head over to Game to Remember, give us a follow, and you'll see much more. And even if you don't know the game, look at that. That's absolutely beautiful. Now, I'll give you a hint. That's on a relatively new game. We've done an unboxing for it on our channel, on our YouTube channel, and well, this is not really a clue, but we're going to do a playthrough on it at some point on our channel. That's not really a hint because we haven't said that, but go take a look on Instagram. All right, without any further ado, let's pull up Board Game Geek, So the caveat or the criteria for this is that we go to Board Game Geek, we do an advanced search, and we search on the year published. So in this case, 1979. And then I sort by order, like their current rank on Board Game Geek. The current rank on Board Game Geek, and then I open up the first 10 that I see, and then they're all open in tabs on my browser right now. I haven't looked at them. I haven't pre-looked. I haven't pre-researched. I don't know a single thing about them. All I know is I've opened the tabs up, and I didn't even really look at the names. Like, I couldn't even tell you what I seen. I just clicked. They're up there, but I'm not really looking at them, and I'm not going to look at them until I open up the browser. Okay, so without any further ado, let's take a look at number 10. All right, number 10 is The Longest Day. This is a mammoth game of World War II Normandy campaign from June to August in 1944. So another war game. So we've come across, in doing this, we've come across a lot of these war games. And clearly these were released a lot in old. Okay, just stop. I'd be curious to see what... Okay, sorry. I was just chatting, and I'm actually just looking at the stats for this game, and I'm kind of blown away. 2 to 8 players, 5,400 minutes. I think in the last episode of Board Game Throwback, we saw one that was 1,800 minutes, and I was flabbergasted. I was floored. I think that was right. I think it was 1,800 minutes. And I said, it's got to be the longest one. Well, we've been outdone by The Longest Day, aka The Longest Game. 5,400 minutes, ages 12 and up. And this is another interesting factoid. Wait, 4.15 out of 5? Of all the games I've searched through and looked up and researched, this might also be one of the higher complexity games. Okay, this is intense. This was released in 1979, a mammoth game of World War II Normandy campaign. This was released by the Avalon Hill Game Company. Okay, so I'm starting to see that pattern of Avalon Hill releasing a lot of these older war games. So that's interesting. Okay, so designer Randall C. Reed. Randall C. Reed. So what's the description? The Longest Day is an operational monster game depicting the assault, build-up, and breakout of the Normandy invasion. The game includes 2,603 counters, representing battalion-sized units and command units up to core level of the Allied and German armies in northern France. 7 map boards depict the invasion beaches and areas as far as Cabourg, as far west as Coutances, and as far south as Avranches-Argentine. Not sure, I didn't pronounce those right. The countries are in the style of German World War II military symbols representing armor, infantry, artillery, assault, guns, bicycle units, etc. 5 separate scenarios are presented using the programmed instruction approach, learning only what's needed to play a scenario before moving on to the next scenario. Once all the rules have been learned, then the campaign game is played, which can take up to several months to finish. Oh! Avalon Hill complexity rating 8. So it's a war game from World War II, and the mechanics are dice rolling events, grid movement, hexagon grid movement points. So you got your standard old school war game. Let's see if we can take a little picture here. Sheltzt. Okay, so the board looks pretty neat. Oh, wow. That's... Okay. This is pretty cool. Wow, this is maybe like the 2,000 piece. How would you organize all of this stuff? What would you keep it all in? You'd obviously have to be pretty heavily organized to look after all this stuff. Yeah, so that's pretty interesting. We didn't look at the rank overall. 3,519 overall, and on the war list, 387 overall. So in terms of war games, this isn't holding a ton of value today in terms of the war game community. And if you haven't watched the previous episodes, I've made commentary that I've never really played any of these war games. So I don't have any position or authority to comment on whether I'd actually play these today. Uh, but I mean, if the game interests me, obviously I'd play it. But I don't have any authority to determine, hey, just by the looks of this, do I think it's good or not? Because I don't understand wargaming. That's one area of the hobby I don't have any playtime invested into. So, would I play this today? What's my official rating? Well, no, because if I'm going to start in wargaming, this isn't going to be the one I'm going to start in. But I'd be curious. I mean, I'd love to hear from some wargamers if anybody's played any types of these games, what they're like and how they play and whatnot. But this is obviously highly complex at a 4.15, and it's highly long. It said months to take. So that's interesting. So that's number 10 on the 1979 publication list. Is The Longest Day. All right, number 9. All right, number 9, Freedom in the Galaxy, the Star Rebellion's 5764 AD. Can a small band of valiant rebels withstand the oppression of the Galactic Empire? Ooh, sounds cool. Rank overall, 3,418. On the war list, it's 593, and on the thematic list, it's 597. It's for 2 players only. It's 120 minutes. So what's 2 hours, ages 12 and up, and then 3.94 out of 5 on the complexity rating. So that's still a pretty high complexity rating. And this is, again, by the Avalon Hill Game Company, is the publisher, and the designer was Howard Barash and John H. Butterfield. Quick side note, Butterfield is a great last name. So the category that this falls into is movies, TV, radio theme, political, science fiction, war game. The mechanisms deployed in this game are action movement, area movement, ratio combat results table, roles with asymmetric information, scenario mission campaign game, secret unit deployment. Man, there's a lot of little things going on in here. So what do you do? What do you do in Freedom in the Galaxy, the Star Rebellion 5764 AD? Well, it was first published by SPI and obviously inspired by Star Wars, clearly. Some of the characters' names are anagrams of SPI employees. Interesting. Freedom in the Galaxy is a medium complexity strategic and tactical game of galactic conquest. Can a small band of valiant rebels withstand the oppression of the mighty galactic empire? The map board schematically represents over 30 solar systems. Unit types include armed forces, spaceships, imperial characters, and individual rebels. The rebel player must start insurrections on various planets, hoping to cause a domino effect and topple the Empire's power base. Yeah, does sound like Star Wars. The Imperial player must garrison planets, quash rebellion, and conduct diplomatic missions to maintain a high loyalty factor. There are 3 levels of complexity to the game system. Combat is dice-based and cross-reference on a probability table. The game consists of a map board, 140 characters, 400 die-cut counters, and a galactic guide, numerous playing aids, and a rulebook. So let's just say that in 1979, they were releasing some big old board games with a ton of pieces. So I guess it's kind of a war game. It's clearly based on Star Wars. What does it look like? Okay. So these must be obviously the planets that you're kind of taking over. Freedom in the Galaxy. Oh, Princess Leia all the way. So clearly someone tried to design a game based on Star Wars in the 70s and couldn't get the rights to do it. So they just made something else. But that seems pretty cool. It's on the war list, so it must be a relative war game. Would I play this today? It's not standing out to me. it's not standing out to me. Freedom of the Galaxy, the Star Rebellions, I know. I'm going to give it a no. I'm not going to play it today. Just nothing stood out to me in terms of what I read, in terms of what I saw. So no, that's number 9. Freedom of the Galaxy, the Star Rebellions, 5764 AD. We're giving it a no. We're not going to play it today. But that's all right. So far we're 0 for 2 on the 1979 list, but we still got 8 more to go. And with that said, number 8. Okay, number 8 is Divine Right. Diplomacy, intrigue, and the sweep of epic battles across magical fantasy land. Another war game. Rank overall 3,279. On the war list, 445. And on the thematic list, 549. So very similar and close to the last game we just looked at. 2 to 6 players, 360 minutes, ages 12 and up, and 3.18 on the complexity rating. 1979, releasing some heavy war games. And it's not Avalon Hill Company. TSR. So this is a fantasy political war game that employs card drafting, dice rolling, events, grid movement, and hexagon grid. So card drafting, dice rolling, and events that you're resolving. Okay. So Divine Right is a new fantasy board game from the Game Wizards at TSR. It combines combat, diplomacy, and role-playing in 2 to 4 hours of fast-paced action as each player attempts to build and hold together an alliance of kings long enough to defeat the other players and win the game. The kingdom of humans, elves, goblins, dwarves, and trolls are pawns in the power games that absolute monarchs play. Ambassadors vie for the attention of the kings, whose favor they curry. Assassinations and backstabbing are popular pastimes, and loyal allies may leave your side in the heat of battle at the drop of a hat or a die. Roll the die. The magicians, too, get their arcane fingers into things, and the gods intervene as well. It is a situation which demands skill and, of course, luck. The box contains rulebook, full-color map sheet, and over 250 die-cut counters, dice, and cards. Wow! Another biggin with hundreds and hundreds of pieces. So Divine Right. So you got this is just another war game with hexes and tons of pieces. Okay. From what I'm learning from war games, this looks very similar to the rest of them. It looks very similar to the rest of these war games. And again, I have no authority on determining if this is a good war game or not. But what I want to do is take a look at this cover art, because I think that is an excellent looking cover. Let's get that so you can see it a little bit better. I think that is beautiful. Sometimes in the 1970s, like a lot of graphic design in the 1970s, well, a lot of it's cool, but some of it can be a little bit cheesy. But I think that looks great. I think the colors, I think the scene of these little ghost riders coming in over the mountaintops like Gandalf. Man, I think this is great. I think that's an excellent cover. From what I play it today, for number 8, Divine Right, no. But do I think the cover's gorgeous? Yeah. Yeah, I do. Absolutely. Okay, so that's number 8, Divine Right. Okay, number 7. What's it going to be, folks? What's it going to be? Sorry, I got to take another little sip here. Getting parched. Okay? I'm getting parched here. All right, number 7 on the list is, let me guess, another war game. Starfleet battles. Take the helm of a Starfleet vessel and engage the enemy at warp speed. This is for 2 players only. Another 2-player only battle game. 180 minutes, ages 12 and up, and weight 4.18 on the complexity scale. These are some intense games. Designer Stephen V. Cole. Publisher Amarillo Design Bureau Incorporated and Task Force Games. It is ranked 2,176 overall on the overall list and 412 on the war list. Man, we are into the war games. 1979 is known as the Wargame year, apparently. Initial publication of the games in the Starfleet Battle Series, this was one of the first Task Force games. It was re-implemented and expanded several times after the original Pocket game. This is the classic game of tactical starship combat set in the Star Trek universe, the original TV show, though you'll never see Star Trek anywhere in the game. Licensing limitation. Okay, just like the Star Wars game we saw. Players command one or more ships from the Federation, Klingon, Gorn, Romulan, or, oh no, I don't know how to pronounce that, Zinti fleets? Sporting all the expected Star Trek weaponry like phasers, set them to stun, distributor bolts, photon, good goodness gracious, photon and plasma torpedoes, and tractor beams. Also includes weaponry not commonly seen, such as drones or homing missiles. So what do? Players allocate energy and plot movement before each turn, then move all the ships simultaneously. Weapons are fired at will during the turn, i.e. not plotted beforehand like movement. Ships have shields and armor protection. When they're breached, various ship systems are damaged, potentially crippling the combat systems and the capability of the ship, eventually resulting in ship destruction. So this is science fiction space exploration war game, and it employs hex grid, impulse movement, point-to-point system, simultaneous action. Okay, so a war game, but I think more like moving ships. And firing them like the modern Star War. I think there's the Star Wars game where you're moving the miniatures on the board and, fighting and whatnot. So up shields, fire phasers. So again, a billion little tiny pieces, a giant hex map. Can you command a starship? Starfleet battles. I mean, this is a blatant ripoff of Star Trek. Commendable effort into trying to rip off Star Trek. Again, what's the verdict? Well, the verdict is it's another big war game released in the late 70s that I don't seem to have really interest in playing. Again, I feel like I'm a broken record here. I have no authority on understanding anything to do with board games. And I don't know if Starfleet Battles is going to be the one that gets me into the hobby. So that's number 7, Starfleet Battles. All right, number 6, we got Circus Maximus. And a monumentous occasion, the first non-war game on the list this week. And the complexity is down in the green. We're coming down a bit. So the race goes on in the game of cinematic chariot contests in the Roman circus. This is ranked 2055 on the overall list. 420. Man, I can't speak. I can't read numbers. 426 on the thematic list and 1,074 on the overall strategy list. So this is for 2-day players, 2 hours, 12 and up, a 2.65 out of 5 in the complexity scale. Dan Greenwood and Michael S. Matheny are the designers and publisher. Of course, the Avalon Hill Game Company and Battle Line. Interesting. So we have not a war game, but looks like it. This is an ancient fighting racing war game, and you employ action points, action cube, betting and bluffing, dice rolling, and grid movement. Okay, cool. What do you do? From the original publisher, the grandeur and decadence of the ancient Rome in your living room. Ooh. Thrill to the dust of chariot races, or the skillful bloodshed of gladiatorial combat. Circus Maximus is really 2 games in one. Oh, a free game. In the chariot race game, you pick your team of horses, driver, and chariot car, each of which have special characteristics. In Gladiator, you pick up your weapons to step into the blood-stained stands, simultaneously maneuvering, striking, and waiting for that fatal step that puts you inside your opponent's guard. Battle Line Circus Maximus would later be developed by Don Greenwood and published in 1980 by the Avalon Hill Game Company as separate titles, Circus Maximus and Gladiator. Violent and bloody, Circus Maximus details the chariot races that occurred In ancient Rome, 8 teams race around the track 3 times to determine victory. Players prepare for the race by selecting the composition of their team's horses, their riders' skills, and the type of chariot that will be driven. Once the race begins, the players are free to do as they wish to hamper the other racers, including whipping the rider, taming chariots with scythed wheels, smashing into horses, and running over crashed opponents. A campaign game of multiple races in which players have to manage their teams and can increase their income by betting on races is also possible. Okay, there's a bit of intrigue that has been sparked by that description. That is Mondo. Okay. So you get these little chariots, they're racing around. These buds are just getting into it, having a grand old time. So is that, I'm trying, these pictures of these old games like this where people, they obviously have a bit of a cult following. It's hard to determine what's the real game and what's not, like what comes in the box. And I don't know if that does. This looks like Bud here just spent a couple days building this in his basement, but I don't know. Yeah, this has to be an embellishment of the original game. Oh yeah, so here's the original probably insert from the game. So that looks more like the kind of racetrack that you're getting for the actual game. Oh yeah, this is it here. That makes more sense. Again, 1979, tiny little square pieces, cardboard pieces. I'm not feeling so hot about this game. Circus Maximus. What is it? Betting and bluffing, dice rolling, grid movement. You know what? I'm gonna have to go for no. We're 0 for 6. We're 0 for 6, buds, in this one. 0 for 6 in 1979. Not a great outing here, but that's okay. The purpose isn't to find games for me to buy. The purpose is to understand some of these old games and to see where the board game hobby has developed over the years, and to see, like, clearly, in 1979 there was clearly a lot of demand, I guess, or a lot of interest in these types of games, but just not for me. That's number 6, Circus Maximus. We're going with a big old no. Okay, number 5. Let's see if we got another. Let's see if we get a game that's not a giant war game, that's not got 3,871 little square pieces. I doubt it. Okay, number 5. Ooh, the awful green things from outer space. The crew fights the invaders without knowing which weapon will be effective. Oh, that sounds interesting. Ranked 2,049 on the overall list and 461 on the thematic list. It's for 2 players only. 60 to 90 minutes, ages 12 and up, and 1.87 on the complexity scale. The designer is Tom Wham, and it's published by Steve Jackson Games. Okay, so the artwork, and this is the whole vibe's making sense. Steve Jackson Games would be the guy who produced Munchkin. If you don't know Munchkin, that's kind of this, kind of like this, not a war game. It's like an RPG dungeon crawler type game, but it's a spoof of it, and so everything's kind of funny and kitschy and campy and whatnot. But anyways, and Steve Jackson Games seem to be really just hone in on that. So this might be interesting. So without going any further, I'm going to say I think I would play this because I really do like Munchkin. I haven't played in years, but I have played it a ton. So anyways, let's see how my rating devolves, because right now I think I would, from the description and the Steve Jackson thing, I feel like I'd play it. So this is a science fiction war game that employs area movement, dice rolling, movement points, and simulation. The humorously entertaining game pits 2 players against each other aboard a spaceship. One plays the ship's crew trying to kill an rapidly mutate try to kill the evil and rapidly multiplying aliens controlled by his opponent. And although the ship's crew member have several weapons available to them, they don't know what effect those weapons will have when trying to use them in combat against the awful green things. Originally appeared in the Dragon magazine number 28, the outside Nutar expansion, published in Dragon magazine number 40, is included in the box in the Steve Jackson version of the game. Similar but more serious titles are SPI's The Wreck of the BSM Pandora and TFG's Intruder. Okay, so just more little things. Okay, so not a ton of description in, not a ton of information in the description there. So clearly we have another fan-made embellishment here. This is the ship. Okay, so that's the original game. This picture was taken in 2010. 2010? I doubt it. Maybe. Excuse me. Okay, so this is the comic strip that came with it. Okay, so again, a ton of little pieces, ton of little square pieces. Captain Yid. A little bit of dice, a little bit of green. Let's see if I can figure out what you do based on this. This is the ship you're trying to fight. You know what? I'm gonna say that my hypothesis has sustained. I would play this game. Maybe only once. But I'd play it because it seems interesting enough that I want to find out what you do. And it's Steve Jackson with the Munchkin. Yeah. You know what? What's this? Okay, so people are making 3D object. Okay, so there's obviously, like Munchkin, I think must be a bit of a cult following with it. Again, like all the previous games, I haven't heard of them. But this is one of I'm gonna say number 5 is what I'd play it. I'm gonna play this. I would like to play this. So that's number 5, The Awful Green Things from Outer Space, by Steve Jackson Games. All right. So we're halfway through the list, and we're coming up on number 4. Let's see what number 4 is. Maybe we're getting away from the war games. Maybe we're leaving those behind. Let's see what number 4 is. Ooh, Big Boggle. We have certainly left the war game atmosphere in our dust. We have Big Boggle. Find words using connecting letters in a 5x5 grid. The longer, the better. 2-day players, 10 minutes, ages 8 and up. Weight 1.53 out of 5 in the complexity rating. Rated 2020 overall and 545 on the family list. This is by alternate names, by Alan Turoff and published by Parker Brothers. Okay. Big Boggle is a timed word game where players attempt to find as many connected words as possible from the face-up letters resting in a 25 cube grid. When the timer runs out, players compare their list of words and remove any shared words. Points are then awarded for remaining words depending on how many letters are in the word. Big Boggle is similar to Standard Boggle, but with the following changes. It uses a 5x5 grid instead of a 4x4 grid, and the minimum word size is 4 letters instead of 3. Okay. So it's literally Boggle. It's literally Boggle, just Big Boggle. So a 5x5 grid, a bigger grid, and the words have to be a little bit longer. So, you know what? I've never played Boggle. But I know what it is, obviously, and based on the description, there's other more recent party games that do something similar, like that I would play instead of Boggle. Like the one I'm thinking of would be Just One, where there's a word you got to get somebody to guess, and you all write it down on this little dry erase board, and similar answers are erased, and then the guesser has to guess what the word is based on the clues that were given, and so you're trying to think of unique ones. Obviously, it's not like Boggle at all, but in terms of what I think Boggle would offer, I would play that one instead. So Big Boggle, I'm going to go with no on Big Boggle. I don't know how much to divulge, excuse me, into Boggle because it's Boggle. And there's just another row with a couple more longer words. So that's number 4, Big Bottle. I keep saying bottle. Big Boggle. Big Boggle is hard to say. That's number 4, Big Boggle. Let's move right on to number 3. Okay. Reifenbright. Reifenbright. I'm going to pretend that's the way to say that. Cycling teams of 4 riders race along famous routes. 2 to 4 players, 60 to 90 minutes, ages 8 and up, 1.96 out of 5 on the complexity scale. Ranked overall 1,517, 815 overall on the strategy list, and 405 on the family list. Designed by Bob Bantenball, and publisher is unknown. Dino Toys? Okay. So, translating as by the width of a tire. Oh, cool. This game covers a Tour de France type of bicycle race. Each player takes control of a four-member racing team, and the goal is to score as many points as possible for the whole team. Movement is primarily handled by dice. However, a limited card set partially replaces die results. Okay, so you can manipulate the dice a little bit, so it's not totally chance or luck. Once you add the unique rules, which allows riders to draft one another in multiple kinds of road surfaces, the game has much to offer race fans. Hummus Tour is the original edition of the cycling racing game, later known as Reifenbright, or By the Width of a Tire. Many copies of the original game were destroyed in a warehouse fire in 1979. Ooh! The combination of its sudden rarity and recognition as a good game meant that Hummus Tour was and is very desirable, particularly to collectors. Everyone else can save their money and enjoy Reifenbright. Okay, cool. So, we got a 1992 Spiel des Jahres winner. In a 1992 Deutscher Spiel Press Best Family Adult Game, second place. So, this is a pretty decent little game. That thing about the fire in a warehouse in 1979, that's cool. Adds to the story of it, makes it a bit, rare. So it's just a bit of a racing game. Obviously, you're just, I guess, rolling dice and racing these guys along the track. Yeah, here we go. 1992. By the Width of a Tire. It seems like a pretty cool racing game. I can think of other more modern games that look identical to that. Not look identical, but would probably play very similar to this. But this seems pretty cool. I can't say that a game that looks like this, where you got a bunch of guys lined up on a track. I haven't really played anything like that. I know there's some. I think it's Flamme Rouge is another more modern game that is reminding me of this, where you're racing bicycles along. I think it's called Downforce, where you're racing like NASCAR car type things. Then there's also, I don't know what it. There's a number of them, like horse race betting types things. So this is a pretty common theme. I don't know what this offers above any of those, but for coming out in the late 70s, this was probably, an early adaptation of those types of games. So that's pretty cool. You know what? Because I haven't played any types of games like this, I'm not opposed to it. I would absolutely play this game. If you brought this over, threw it on the table, I'd bust it out, man. Make some popcorn, and let's play. So that's Reifenbright, or By the Width of a Tire, coming in at number 3. Number 2. Let's see what we got on the dock for number 2. Oh, Magic Realm, the granddaddy of complex RPG-style board games, now available to print and play. Wow. Okay, ranked overall, 1,244. 257 on the thematic list, and 709 on the strategy list. 1 to 16 players? Wow. Oh, but they're saying best 3 to 4. 240 minutes, ages 12 and up, weight 4.53 out of 5 on the complexity scale. Designed by Richard Hamblin. And who else do you think is the publisher of these grandiose, crazy games in the late 70s? The Avalon Hill Game Company. Cool. So this is an adventure, exploration, fantasy fighting game that employs Action cue, dice rolling, events, modular board, paper, and pencil. Magic Realm is the game of fantasy adventuring, set in a land filled with monsters, fabulous treasures, great warriors, and magicians. The scene is set in the ruins of a mighty kingdom, now inhabited by sparse groups of natives and swarms of monsters. Beneath it are the rich remnants of a magical civilization, scattered and lost across the map. To this scene come the adventurers, seekers of riches and fame, to make a name for themselves in this promising field. Swordsman and dwarf, magician and sorcerer, the human and the half-humans, come seeking to loot the legendary riches of lost civilization. Now you can play the part of one of these adventurers, stepping into an unknown realm of magic and monsters, battles, and treasures. As a player, you will take control of the role of one of the 16 major characters who are represented in detail in the game. You'll control where he goes and what he tries to do, how he handles himself in combat, and much, much more. In the course of the game, you will run into deadly monsters, tribes of humans ranging from old friends to sworn enemies, and treasures that will enhance your abilities in many ways. Magic Realm is a complex game designed to recapture the suspense and desperate struggles of fantasy literature. Okay, so between exploring a new land where mountains, caves, valleys, and woods change every game, and not knowing what you will find in each place, you will find each game new and unpredictable adventure filled with surprises. You will find this like no other board game you've ever played. Avalon Hill complexity rating 9. So in reading that description, that doesn't sound too unique for today, but considering the games that we've been looking at in the 70s and the 80s, especially in these big war games, it seems like you either had these massive war games or you had these funny little kitschy, campy, either party games like Balderdash or this, Big Boggle. This doesn't seem too foreign of a concept in terms of today, but in 1979, I don't obviously know the market and the hobby at that point, but it seems like this would be pretty unique because of the whole modular board aspect. You had these big old war games where you had the same board. It was a campaign scenario. You're playing a specific time in war, and you probably had these strategies built up. Where you on your turn you do this, you start out doing this, you do this, and those tend to be not games that I find enjoy. Where you go, oh yeah, when you play this game, your first move has to be this, and then you got to do this, and you got to do that. That doesn't interest me in board games. In fact, I absolutely despise that. If the game divulges into a thing where you have to know what to do and when to do it in a certain order, that's not a board game to me. That's just a puzzle or something else, and you got to do it the most effectively. So all of this to say, this maybe feels like, Avalon Hill Company and this doing something different in that regard, where you have this modular board and these kind of different powers and stuff. So yeah, even, other games, this doesn't look like other games. And so, you've got this kind of modular board set up and different things that can happen. So I feel like in the late 70s when this was released, this was probably pretty novel concept. Again, it's not novel today to have these modular hex boards. But, it was probably pretty cool back then. And so for that reason alone, I think I'd play this game because I'd be curious to know how this plays. What I'd love to know is how this plays compared to some of those old games from the 70s that are actually war games, and to see how it stands up today. So I would play Magic Realm based on comparing it and contrasting it to how a modern game today would seem like this. Anyways, that's my rant. It seems pretty complex. It's still pretty high. 4.5 out of 5. Like, that's high. But I would absolutely play this. I would love to play this, actually. And let's look at that little cover for a second. Let's dive into the cover art here. I'm not as obsessed with it as I was as that Divine Realm game. Oh, Magic Realm, Divine Realm. Cool. But it still looks pretty cool. It looks okay. But, yeah, that's not a bad cover, though. I like that cover. So that's number 2 is Magic Realm. All right, we've made it to number 1. Okay? So let's see what we got. And I got a feeling. I don't know what it is. But I got a feeling it's going to be just a big old war game with a bunch of little pieces. But could be wrong. Let's see. Okay, we got Dune. We got Dune. So sorry. Use unique strengths, treachery, and cunning to gain control of the spice. The spice. Rank overall 308. Thematic 69. Strategy 201. So we've entered into the realm of like this is a relatively like in today's age, like this is like a popular game, a coveted game, and in fact, Dune was just re-released recently. There was a Dune Imperium game released, which has a ton of traction, and people are looking at it. So we've entered into the realm of a good game by today's standard, or at least a popular game by today's standards, that was released in 1979. So that's cool. 2 to 6 players, 60 to 180 minutes, ages 12 and up, 3.44 on the complexity scale. Designer Bill Ebery, and published by none other than the Avalon Hill Game Company. I don't know much about this. I don't know much about this game at all, and I don't know much about the new Dune game. But set thousands of years in the future, Dune, the board game, is based on Frank Herbert's novels about an arid planet at the heart of the human space's empire's political machinations. Designed by the creators at Eon of Cosmic Encounter. Okay. Some contend that the game can be best described as Cosmic Encounter set within the Dune universe. Oh, interesting. But the two games bear little in common in the actual mechanisms or goals. Oh, okay. I thought I knew how to play, but I don't. They're both just set in space. Okay. I don't know who wrote this. Like Cosmic Encounter, it is a game that generates player interaction through negotiation and bluffing. Okay, so that is similar to Cosmic Encounter. Players each take the role of one of the factions attempting to control Dune. Each faction has special powers that overlook certain rules in the game. Each turn, players move about the map attempting to pick up valuable spice while dealing with giant sandworms, deadly storms, and other players' military forces. A delicate political balance is formed against the players amongst the factions to prevent any one side from becoming too strong. When a challenge is made in the territory, combat takes the form of hidden bids with additional treachery cards to further the uncertainty. The game concludes when one faction or two allied factions is able to control a certain number of strongholds on the planet. So this does sound a lot like Cosmic Encounter. So we got someone repurposed a crokinole board. Ooh, the cover looks cool. Yeah. I'm trying to see in action. Ooh, snackies. Yeah, so in Cosmic Encounter, you'd have a bunch of these little plastic ships on these spaces. I mean, this does obviously... okay, so you're hiding some stuff, and there's some negotiation. So this does feel like Cosmic Encounter. It does feel a lot like Cosmic Encounter, but set in the Dune universe. Now, I don't know much about the Dune universe. I have a special edition Dune book that I have not read. I love fantasy. And I've tried to read this, but I haven't just been able to get into it. I have so much other stuff that I need to read as well. I just haven't really got the chance or the time to get into this. But obviously, I know that the Dune universe has a giant cult following or a giant following. It's one of these old sci-fi classics. And so I wouldn't play this game. No, that's not my rating. I wouldn't play this game because of my love and nostalgia for the Dune universe. But I'd play this game because it's pretty high ranked overall. It's similar to Cosmic Encounters, which is a good game. And that can... it's a good game, but that could take a whole discussion as to why it could be a good game or it could not be a good game. But that's also a classic. But I would play this game. It's not one of these big sprawling war games. It's like Cosmic Encounter, which was released in a similar time frame. I think it was a little earlier than this. But this seems cool, and it looks like there might be some more stuff involved than just Cosmic Encounter, where they had those little shields and they're kind of hiding some stuff. I don't know what that's all about, but that's number one, Dune. And I would play it. I would absolutely play it. Because it seems cool. I don't, like I said, I don't know much about the Dune universe. I haven't read the book, but I will at some point. And I would probably at some point in my life, if I can come across this in a flea market or a thrift store, would absolutely play it. Well, that's it, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. It's been a blast to have you with me while I just go through this and just spill out some stuff while I'm looking at old games and nerding out. So if you've enjoyed this, be sure to subscribe. Ring the notification bell to let you know anytime that I post a new video or go live, which we do often on this channel. You'll find lots more stuff, from unboxings to playthroughs to everything in between. Anything to do with board games, you're going to find it here. So thanks for tuning in. Until the next time, we'll see you.